I want to make a video about using this opportunity with the events of this year to wake up from some lifestyle misconceptions or just ways of life that perhaps were not the best ways to go about it. And this comes back to about a year ago. I had traveled for a conference in another country. And when I got there, I couldn't find any of my favorite comfort foods. I love baking chocolate. I eat a lot of buffalo meat here in the States. I couldn't find any of that over there. The diet over there is very heavy in fish, obviously, as you can imagine. And just a number of just comfort foods. Not necessarily the healthiest, but I got very depressed over that. And obviously the culture is also very different there. It's very difficult to just ask somebody where to get stuff like this. And by the third day of that trip, I was losing it. And then I looked at the calendar and realized how much time I had left for the trip, and I got very depressed. It was like a prison sentence almost. And finally I get home. And the funny thing was, you would think that when I got home, the first thing I would do is to make a beeline to get all those favorite comfort foods, and it really wasn't. I started to get depressed about leaving the vacation. But when I got home, I went back to work. I teach at a technical university, and one day one of the students drove me nuts. He came outside of my office hours. So sometimes you got kids who are 18, 19, 20 years old. Sometimes don't have a care in the world about any sort of boundaries, and he thinks he rules the classroom sometimes. That's a lot of students. I'm not trying to pick on this one student. But what was really annoying was I was just about to watch a video of mine. I'm always trying to learn new things. I think it was a Khan Academy video. And I had prepared this bag of popcorn, and I was sitting in the break room, which really is kind of off limits to the students too. But again, you're dealing with young kids who, okay. But when he interrupted me, I got really uncomfortable because I was prepped up for eating the popcorn. And to make a long story short, I was trying to get him out the door. I mean, I was very angry, but I don't think I showed it on my face. But the student was pretty angry too, because he was upset that he couldn't get the software for his homework installed, and it was the second day of class, and he was threatening to drop the class because there's a deadline, I think, within the first week to drop the class before there's a penalty, and so he was on the verge of deciding to drop that class, and I was a mess. Somehow I convinced the student not to drop the class, but I don't think I gave him very clear answers about how to install the software, and somehow I think he got an A or a B in the class. So he turned out okay, but both of us were pretty upset on that day. And I probably could have said, could you please come back during my office hours? And that might have resolved things. For some reason, that line didn't come to me in time. I do that a lot. In retrospect, everything is always easy. So at the beginning of 2020, I made it a New Year's resolution to normalize my relationship with food, because food had become so intrusive in my life. It was getting in between me and my vacations, my workplace, my relationships. And 2 months into the resolution, somebody halfway around the world decided to eat something that really wasn't fit for human consumption. And as a result, all of us, right, all 8 billion of us, had difficulty getting to our favorite comfort food, right, and getting to toilet paper and getting to all the nice conveniences of life, right. That became a big source of inspiration for me for 2 reasons. First of all, I had to live without my favorite foods. I'm very lucky to be in a country where I have suitable food to eat, right? I don't have to eat food that makes me sick. And I had to appreciate that. And second, I realized just how much devastation one person can cause just by wanting to eat whatever he wants, whenever, without any regard to the safety of his peers, right? And that became a big source of inspiration for me. And then I realized that sometimes I behave very selfishly with food myself. When I thought about how much I was overeating, there was enough food to feed probably several starving children, right? I think the statistics is that around the world, even though we have 8 billion of us, we produce enough food for like 10 to 12 billion. A lot of it gets wasted, but even more of it gets overeaten by people, right? So the end result is that some people die of starvation, and even more people die from feeding themselves to death, and then some food gets wasted. It's made me wake up to the fact that maybe if one person eating something wrong can cause so much trouble for everybody else, maybe I shouldn't contribute to that problem, and I should watch just how I'm behaving with my food, right? I hope that the events of this year have inspired you to wake up from something, right? Maybe you weren't practicing the best hygiene possible. Maybe it's made you realize that your family union is very important. Maybe it's made you realize that there are so many things we can do on the computer without having to burn fossil fuels to go somewhere to take care of it. And I hope we can have a more peaceful life after